beginning to release their education plans for back to school in the fall of 2020, teachers are considering new ways to engage students in light of COVID-19. Today we're speaking with Kailey Lefko and Josianne Barnabé, co-founders of Educalme Inc, who since 2017 have been working on a series of tools to help teachers to bring mindfulness and social emotional learning into their classrooms. They're doing this through a ready-to-use bilingual online program called Educalme Classroom. Educalme Classroom helps students to feel calm, focused, and ready to learn. They are both certified classroom teachers and yoga instructors, and together they teach educators from around the world how to integrate mindfulness into their lives and their classrooms through professional development workshops, through their online tool, and through the Balanced Educator podcast that they also have. Some of their accolades so far include winning the Coupe des Startup Pitch Competition, being named Young Entrepreneur of the Year by St. Boniface Chamber of Commerce, and being featured in a TV documentary series called De Par Chez Nous, which was through UniTV out of Quebec. And here today, to help us understand the possibilities of mindfulness in education, we have Kailey and Josianne in studio now. Ladies, welcome to Start Podcast.
Thank you so much for having us. We're super excited to be here. This is fun.
Yes, and you guys podcast too, so this is old hat for you.
Yeah, it's fun to be on the other side of things, being interviewed instead of being the interviewer. It's fun.
Right, absolutely. We're going to have fun. So talk to us first. Tell us a little bit about Educalme Classroom and how it came to be.
Yeah, so it really started, Josianne and I are both classroom teachers. So in the beginning of our teaching careers, we recognized quite quickly that teaching was a stressful job. There's a lot on your shoulders. You are helping kids to grow not only in their academic life, but you're helping them to develop skills to do well in life, skills for social skills, emotional skills, everything. You can't just teach the academics in the classroom. You're there to support the whole child. So in the beginning, we recognized for ourselves that we had to manage our own stress in a way that would allow us to stay in this profession, because lots of teachers leave the profession quickly because it's quite stressful. So we started practicing yoga together. It was like part of our wellness routine. And then we really got into practicing mindfulness. And mindfulness is just the practice of paying attention to the present moment on purpose. So it's a style of meditation where you're practicing recognizing your thoughts and your feelings and coming back to the present moment. So this practice helped both of us to really reduce our stress. And we were like, oh my gosh, we need to share this with our students. Like, this is something we should have learned in school because it's so useful as a tool to help us live our lives to the fullest and to manage the ups and downs that just come with being a human. So we started teaching mindfulness in our classroom to our students, and we saw pretty quickly that it was making a huge difference in our students' lives and a huge difference in like the academics in the classroom, because students were learning to focus, they were learning to manage their emotions, they were getting skills to manage anxiety and depression. All these things were so helpful that we decided, there should be a tool accessible to teachers everywhere so that they can easily do this in the classroom and they don't have to be certified yoga instructors to be able to do it themselves.
Right, and replicate what you guys were able to achieve.
Exactly.
What kind of grades were you two teaching at the time?
I was teaching grade 4 or 5 at that time.
I was teaching grade 8 at that time, grade 7 and 8, and I had started out in the high school classroom. So yeah, I was kind of seeing that early years where kids, teenagers, preteens are really trying to figure themselves out,
right,
manage the social anxieties and pressures that are happening at that age, and have it's a difficult time in your personal development is going through those preteen and teenage years. So.
Yeah, well, and did you guys see a difference from even like grade 4 to grade 8 in the ability to kind of accept those type of exercises and like actually sit down and stay calm and try and do it?
Absolutely. I think the younger they are, if they start on this practice at a very young age, they're so open to it, they're so excited about it. And with older ones, it just takes a little more time.
With the older ones, the difference is that they usually feel awkward at first.
Yes,
they're like,
for sure.
They're like looking around at their peers, like, is this weird? My eyes are closed.
The social acceptance piece.
And we're asking them to do something they've never done before, right? So it's weird. It's a weird experience.
Yeah, but in the end, once you've started doing this practice, all age groups end up really liking it and finding big ways that the skills that they're learning through the mindfulness practice can support them in their regular lives. So, with the older grades, you're talking more, peer pressure, anxiety about tests, those kind of worries. With the younger ages, it's more about managing their emotions
and behaviors.
Not lashing out when they're angry or frustrated, and how to manage those in a healthy way.
Right. And so now I imagine you have kind of different series depending on what age teachers are teaching. So how do you guys format that part of your product?
Actually, our whole program is created for all ages. So we've really intentionally made this so that we use simple language without it being babyish. And the reason for that is that not only are we teaching the students through these audios in our program, but the teachers are learning alongside their students. And the teachers are developing these skills just as much as the students are. So we really wanted to create something that was for all age groups, that anyone could do together, and it was accessible for everyone.
That's interesting. Now, help me understand. Do you define a difference between mindfulness and meditation? Is that a word that you use in the classroom, or do people kind of push back against the word meditation? Speak to that a little bit.
We always call it mindfulness. Unfortunately, with the word meditation, are some people who say it's a religion or whatever, which it's not. So we always stick to saying a mindfulness practice, which is just, like Kailey had said, just paying attention to the present moment with intention.
Right. And I think that is certainly a topic or a word that is trending more highly, right?
Yes.
Like there are way more people who are taking the time to practice mindfulness in their own lives in many different ways, right? I know a lot of young people in business that have done these 21-day mindfulness kind of challenges, especially during COVID. Like people have been challenging themselves with new things, and that's been one of them. But has there been any pushback from parents or even from teachers within schools because of that kind of connotation to religion of meditation and things like that, or for any other reason? Has there been pushback you've had to deal with at all?
Not really. We teach in our program, we give resources to teachers for how to talk about this program to parents so that they can help to sort of avoid those worries. So we explain that mindfulness is like a sport. So if you're playing football's the sport. If you go to a football game, you might see people praying before the game, or, raising their hands and thanking God after making a touchdown. That doesn't make football a religion, but every person is allowed to bring their own religion or spiritual beliefs into the practice. And the same is true with mindfulness. Mindfulness itself is not religious, it's not spiritual, it's an exercise for the brain. And so if someone chooses to bring spirituality into mindfulness, that's their choice. But in the classroom, it's a secular practice where we're doing an exercise for the brain to help the brain and body be ready for learning. So we explain that to teachers so that they're able to explain that to parents so that they can reduce that. But way more than we've maybe heard of one of our hundreds of teachers that has had one parent that had questions about it. But
I feel like parents thank their teachers for the skills that their kids are learning most of the time.
We get so many stories from teachers about parents that are really excited that they're doing this in the classroom.
What's the biggest hurdle for teachers trying to implement this in their classroom? Like, is it just that they find that they might not have the time to look at it in the first place, or?
It's always time in the classroom.
Right.
No time. I don't have 5 minutes to dedicate to this. But all teachers who use our program say that they save time in the long term because they're not having to manage their classroom as much because students are self-regulating, they're managing their own emotions and behaviors.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're both bilingual, and taking a product, talking about time, taking a product and making it immediately in two languages.
Yes. Everything is double.
Yes, and you're laughing already because you know. Talk about that a little bit.
It's
amazing.
It's wonderful. The thing is, of all the times that we've gone, man, this is so much work doing everything in two languages. One of the main reasons we created this is we're both French immersion teachers, and we were looking for a resource that was bilingual, and we could not find it. So we just made it ourselves. We were tired of not being able to find a good mindfulness resources for the classroom in both languages. So from the beginning, it's always been very important to us to serve our bilingual community and our French community with these resources. So it's always worth it. And we are thanked a lot by our bilingual teachers that are always like, I've been looking for something like this and I'm so happy you've made it. Yeah. So it's totally worth it.
They're our biggest supporters for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you talked a little bit about kind of that spark to get started in the first place. And that obviously ties in with the bilingualism, like you're saying. But there are many like meditation apps and tools out there. Were you not worried that there was a saturated market already?
That was never something that we were worried about. We knew that as teachers, we had searched high and low on the internet for something to serve our purpose in the way that we needed it. We needed a resource that was created for the classroom. There's very few that are created by teachers for the classrooms. Everything we found just didn't quite fit. We wanted something that was a quick daily practice so that our students are building skills daily over time. If you just do mindfulness once a week or one day out of the year, your students aren't going to walk away with those social emotional skills they need to thrive in their lives. It has to be taught just like you teach reading, just like you teach math on a daily practice. So we wanted to create that thing that was missing, that we saw was missing, and we did it, and also wanted it to be bilingual. So even though there's lots of other things out there, we hadn't found the thing that was the right fit for us. So we knew that meant there had to be other teachers just like us that weren't quite finding the right fit. So we wanted to create it for us because we literally use it in our own classrooms and also for other teachers like us.
And the education market can sometimes be hard to break into, like because teachers are so busy and because there's a lot of people that know that there's a big pool to access there in a way, right? So that said, you were of course both teachers to start. How much easier do you think that made it for you? Or was there still really big hurdles when it came to getting other teachers to kind of pay attention to what you guys were doing?
I think just the fact that we are teachers and we understand the reality of the classroom, like that already got us in, right? Like that was a big part of it.
It made our product stand out to teachers because once they used it, one of our biggest feedbacks that we get from teachers is, wow, this is clearly made for teachers because I can actually just use it right away. I don't have to alter it. I don't have to change it. It's clear that it's made by teachers. So yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Explain your sales model a little bit. So I know you started by selling on Teachable, which if you're a teacher listening, you'll know what this is. Basically a site where you can buy different like curriculum pieces to add into your classroom, and different tools and projects and things like that are already kind of pre-prepared to some degree. But you guys went all the way to creating a custom website, and then you've got a subscription model to it. So explain a little bit the sales model and how it's evolved.
So in the beginning, we always knew that we wanted our program to be a full year program. So teachers would never have to search for resources. They would come to class in the morning and they would press play. It's ready to go for them. There's no prep required. So when we first started out, we had to create all the content. So we were creating one unit of this program at a time. So in the beginning, we started just selling one unit at a time as we were creating them, kind of to see the interest there and what people were wanting. And then we eventually built it out to have a full year curriculum, full year program. And we used the website Teachable to hold on to that stuff for us. Because that was our starting point. And we kind of think of that as like our beta version. And that's when we started selling subscriptions to this whole library of resources. But we quite quickly realized that website wasn't...
We grew out of it.
Yeah, we outgrew it, and we couldn't organize the things within the program the way that we wanted to. So we wanted it to be custom and to be able to fit the format that made sense to us and to our users. We also got a ton of feedback from people that were using our program to help us develop the final program, which we have now. So yeah, we kind of think of those other steps as kind of the stepping stones to get us where we always wanted to be, but we needed to do testing and get feedback before we could get there.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Like putting out those pieces one at a time on Teachable allowed you to get that feedback and iterate before you went and invested in the big final product, right?
Yes,
which was really smart. Would you call what you have now a subscription model?
Yes.
Yeah.
So explain that a little bit, what you're doing now.
So now we have our full year program that when people first want to try it out, they can start our free trial, which gives them access to our first unit of our program. So that also gives them some training on how to use the program, information for how to talk to parents about it, how to talk to their administrators about it, all those things, and gives them a full month 5 weeks about of resources to try out in their classroom. And if they feel that it's the right fit for them, they can purchase a subscription for a full year subscription to our full program. And then that's a yearly subscription. So, and we do have discounts when teams, so at least 5 teachers or more from a school sign up together as a team, then they get a discount.
Okay, interesting. What made you choose subscription model instead of just like asking someone to buy the whole thing outright up front?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it was a few different things. Part of it is that we love the creation process. We love creating for this program. We're
always adding and changing and making it better. And
so we wanted to create something that people would want to keep coming back to get more. We wanted to create something that had kind of like a community feel. We have a forum within the program so that teachers can connect, ask each other questions, ask us questions, talk about what's going well, talk about maybe what they're struggling with and get support. We wanted it to feel like this hub that they're coming back to year after year that is evolving and getting better. And we take a lot of feedback to know what to add next. We
always create based on what teachers are asking for.
Yeah, there's so much value to that, right? Creating a community rather than just that one-off product. And in your case, because what you're working on is iterating and because you do care so much about that community, that model certainly sounds like it makes more sense for you then. So good job on that. But so you also have customers in other countries, right? In US and Australia. How did you reach those markets?
Well, through social media a lot.
Wow, yeah.
Pinterest is huge
our
for
podcast.
us.
Yes, tell me this.
Podcast,
you guys said in advance of the show that Pinterest gets you business. I would not have guessed that. So how have you leveraged that?
Teachers love Pinterest. They find like lesson plans and
like
blog
crafts
posts,
and,
all kinds of things on Pinterest. I myself as a teacher am a Pinterest user. Like if I have an activity that I want to do in the classroom, I'll go and check out Pinterest to just see what ideas are out there.
The thing that's nice about Pinterest is that it's a search engine. So it's a way for people to search for the resources in their classroom that they're looking for. So if they're going onto Pinterest, like all teachers do this, they start on Pinterest to look for ideas for, I want to do this. I want to do mindfulness in the classroom. So they'll search mindfulness in the classroom.
On Pinterest specifically.
On Pinterest. And then what's going to come up? Well, Educalme has all these resources. So all of our blog posts, our podcast episodes, free resources are all linked to Pinterest. So they find us, and then that's going to bring them to our website. And then they're going to give us their email address in exchange for a free resource that we've created for them. And then now they're on our email address. So we give them
email list.
On our email list, yeah. So we give them emails that are really giving them more free resources and teaching them about how to use our program, teaching them about the things that they might be interested in. So we're really serving them as soon as they find us through Pinterest.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So for those listening that might want teachers as their market, that might be a good place to go if they weren't already aware. I mean, you guys were aware because you were teachers, right?
Yeah, we kind of just looked at our own behaviors.
Right, absolutely. Which is
teachers,
smart. Yeah. Now, with the world that we're currently living in, with COVID-19 being something that's affecting everyone, and certainly the education system has been a big topic of conversation as of late. We won't get too deep into your thoughts on the education system itself and what's going on, but do you think Educalme will be more important now than ever as students and teachers are managing anxiety around what's actually our whole ecosystem?
Absolutely.
100%.
Mental health, like people are starting to realize that mental health is number one. It is the priority. If we want students to learn, to grow, they need to have their well-being to begin with.
Do you think that you're going to need to kind of change your marketing strategy in light of that right now? Or do you think naturally people will just start searching it more? Have they already been? Do you have a sense of that?
Well, we have definitely created resources specifically for remote learning because as soon as, last school year when remote learning started, teachers were just frantically trying to figure out what to do and
including
ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the teachers that used our program we were getting emails right away like, how can we use your program at home? Like, how do we do it for remote learning? So we immediately dropped everything and we're creating resources for remote learning. So we adapted our program to make it available for teachers to do remotely with their students while their students are at home. But yeah, there's definitely an uptick in the big question of like, well, what's really important in education? If I'm short on time and resources and we can't get through the whole curriculum, it's impossible because of all the things that are happening, like what really matters? Well, our students' wellness matters. We need to give them skills that allow them to be more resilient in face of challenges and help them to manage their stresses, anxieties, worries. Because if they're stressed and anxious and worried, their brain just isn't ready for learning. You can't teach a brain that is in the stress response. So teachers are understanding that. I think most teachers knew that before, but
Now
never
they
had
really know.
Yeah, now they have the push to actually do something about it. So yeah, I think that we are here in the right place at the right time to serve the problems that are happening right now.
Yeah, I would have thought absolutely that that'd be the case. And I liked your line there about not being able to teach a brain that's in the stress response. I think that that's so important. And I think a lot of people listening can even apply that to their workplace as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be youth that we're talking about here, right? Like I'm sure that applies across the board.
It's everyone.
Yeah, 100%. It's just our human physiology. Like I'm a biology teacher, so this is so important and exciting for me to talk about. And if people listen to our podcast, they'll see we have a lot of episodes around this topic of how important it is to manage the stress response and get out of the fight and flight response before we can start learning. Our brain shuts down when we're stressed, and we can't create new neural connections. So mindfulness first, teaching next.
Right. And that's the Balanced Educator podcast for
Yes.
those looking to find that. And we'll link to it in our show notes as well. But
Awesome.
Okay, let's get into our speed round now, ladies.
Oh my goodness, I'm nervous.
No, it's fun. It's fun. Okay, describe yourself in a word or two.
Motivated.
Oh. How do I describe myself?
I'm all the things.
Passionate. That would be, I
Yes,
get excited about what
I
I'm
agree.
excited about.
Good. Describe your business in a word or two.
Mindful.
Yeah.
That's
Fair.
what comes to mind. Calm.
Yes.
What is the hardest part of starting a business?
Knowing where to start.
Yeah. Shiny object syndrome for sure.
Yeah, we'll get to that. What do you suck at?
Ooh.
Oh.
I'm good at everything. I don't know.
Oh, hey.
I suck at time management if I don't have Josianne to help me.
Public speaking. Well, I don't think I suck at it. I just don't. Yeah. I'm here today.
This is
so
good.
it's
You're
a big
doing
deal.
great.
Yeah.
You're doing great. At any point, have you guys considered giving up on entrepreneurial life?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
What keeps you up at night?
The things that we're super passionate about in the business, 100% for me.
Yeah. Whenever we start a new project, we're both so excited about it that we have a hard time stopping.
It's a problem sometimes.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Mistakes mean growth.
Listen to your gut.
What's the best way for you to relax?
Mindfulness.
Running.
I found recently a mindfulness app that's tied with my running app.
Ooh,
We'll get into that.
nice.
Very exciting. What is the toughest thing you've ever done?
Oh,
Quit teaching and start a business.
yeah. Agreed.
Good. What does innovation mean to you?
Following your creativity.
That's yeah. I'm thinking the same thing.
Yeah. We're on the same wavelength.
Like going on that path, even though it's scary. And yeah, getting creative.
That's it, you guys. Speed round.
we did it. Yeah.
My heart's like beating.
You did it. They're high-fiving.
Take some deep breaths now.
That was awesome. Talk to me a bit about shiny object syndrome and like starting a business and not knowing where to go. And yeah, some people probably are giving you advice too all over the place.
Oh,
like,
yes.
How did you figure out what direction or what was that process like?
There was a lot of throwing spaghetti at the wall, especially with marketing for us. Like as teachers, we knew how to create the content. We knew what teachers we would want. We knew what we wanted as teachers. So that was never an issue. But on the marketing side of things, it's definitely been like trial and error. And yeah, we would listen to a podcast and they would say, oh, you should try this or you should do this thing. This is the thing that's going to make you, your business work. And then that wouldn't work for us. And then we would try something else. And it was like kind of like, ooh, squirrel, you know,
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
everything.
Yeah.
Well, and especially because a lot of those things you're listening to probably weren't necessarily only geared to the education system, right? It's probably
Exactly.
like general marketing tips, which for you guys might be slightly different.
Yes.
Yeah, and in the beginning, when you're new to business, you're like, everything is so exciting, and then you listen to a podcast or you take a course, and they're like, if you just do this one thing in your business, you're going to make $1 million, and then you'd be like, oh, okay, we have to work on this thing, and we would do it and be like, wah wah, like, oh, this doesn't work for our community. This doesn't work for our space. This isn't quite right for our style. So it's always been a series of like, try something, take what worked, leave the rest behind. And there's no such thing as failure, because every time we failed or something didn't work out the way that we thought it would work out, it was such a huge insight into, okay, that didn't work. That means this direction is better for us. So it was always so important.
Do you think you guys have always been capable of learning from failure like that, like learning from that process? Because I think for some people, if you hit too many walls, you just want to stop.
I think we're both naturally very coachable people. Like, we really coach each other a lot. We're very self-reflective. So although it's definitely difficult at times, and like we've had times where we've felt really down about it, but we've always really reflected and decided, okay, what did we learn from this? What's the next step? I think that also came from our teacher
For sure.
becoming teachers. We
The
had to do
growth mindset.
Yeah, we had to do a lot of reflection on every lesson that we taught, what worked and what didn't, and what am I going to do next time? So we were very trained to look at failure or mistakes as just
growth.
Opportunity to get better next time.
If you are someone who's hitting a wall and can't seem to find a way around or to grow from it, or hitting many walls, let's say, and not being able to really turn that into something positive, do you have advice on how you could use mindfulness to achieve that or get past those barriers?
Yeah, I think step one, if you're feeling very emotional about something, is to lower that stress response, lower that emotional response, because when our body is really stressed, it's our brain, like I said, shuts off, and it's really hard for us to see the big picture when we're in a stress response. So step one would be, throw on a guided mindfulness audio, help yourself get relaxed, help yourself get out of that stress response. And then once you're feeling calm, ask yourself the question, what am I learning from this? How is this helping me to grow? What is this teaching me that I didn't know before? And if you come at it as like a detective that's trying to find the clues, it's not that you've failed, it's that you're going through the process of learning. And it's so important to fail in order to learn. If everything was easy all the time, we would never need to go to school. We would never need to read books. Like, life would be boring.
Right.
We're meant to come up to hurdles and then find creative ways to get around it. So I think just taking that mindset is really helpful.
Yeah, I think it was interesting, the point that you just said there, and correct me if this is wrong, but that through that process of mindfulness, of trying to identify what is causing you that emotion or that pain, that identifying those things in and of themselves is a success. You don't necessarily need to have a solution yet, but that part you can be happy to say that you've kind of identified that, right? So being happy with kind of those pieces of the process.
Exactly. I think one thing that we talk about a lot about starting a business is how it's such an opportunity for personal growth. You're constantly being shown your blocks. You're constantly be showing your insecurities. You're constantly like having yourself put in front of yourself, and you have to overcome all these hurdles and these blocks. So mindfulness is a really great tool to just get quiet with yourself, recognize what fears are coming up, what negative thought loops are coming up. And you have to first recognize it and be aware of it before you can begin to slowly change it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to put you guys on the spot a little bit and tell me if this is not possible to do right now, but I'm listening to you and I'm thinking to myself, is there a small exercise that we could do together right now? Even something that maybe like a teacher would use in the classroom and like I can be your student. Is there something short that you can walk me through?
Absolutely. It's called 5-finger breathing. This is one of our most popular mindfulness techniques that adults, kids, everyone can use. So what you're going to do is place one hand in front of you. And then you're going to take the index finger of your other hand and place it where your wrist meets your thumb. So we're going to trace our hand really slowly as we breathe deeply through our nose. So to start, inhale and trace your finger up to your thumb. As you exhale, trace down the other side. Inhale, trace up your index finger. Exhale, trace down the other side. Inhale, trace up your middle finger. Exhale down the other side. Inhale up your ring finger. Exhale down the other side. Inhale up your pinky finger. Exhale down the other side. And just pause and notice how you're feeling. And that's just a little technique that you can do to come back to center whenever you're feeling a little overwhelmed or tired or just off in any way, or say you have something important coming up and you want to feel calm and ready to perform at your best. You can do that right before, say, a podcast interview or a presentation.
That's so simple. And I was even thinking, like, if you're frustrated in a meeting or something, you could almost even do that with your hand under the table, like, as opposed to out in front of you, right?
Sure.
While you're trying to calm yourself down.
Yeah,
I think that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So do you identify a difference between mindfulness practices that people could use in business and then as opposed to the types that you're using in the classroom? Like, I know you said you guys are using more plain language in order to help, but would you say that there's quite a big difference, or is the practice itself kind of streamlined where it would work for adults in business as well as youth in the classroom?
Mindfulness itself is for all ages. Mindfulness is actually a very simple practice. And if you're following a guided mindfulness audio, generally what they're instructing you to do is just paying attention to sensations in your body or sounds around you. So you're really just using your 5 senses to help yourself connect to the present moment. Often when we're feeling stressed, it's because our mind is reaching out into the future and thinking about something bad that might happen, or, coming up with scenarios of how something might go wrong, and that's making you feel stressed, or you're thinking of the past and how you should have done something differently. So at any time we can use our 5 senses to just bring ourselves back to the present moment. And usually in this present moment, we're actually okay. We're breathing, we're sitting, all is well.
Right. You might be thinking of like other things in the future, but if you just bring yourself back to that moment at hand.
I think in regards to our program, like, teachers love the practice as much as the kids do. So I think it could work for businesses.
Right, because they're the adults here that we're referring to. They're the business people at that level.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Now, as you're describing that too, I'm thinking to myself of when you guys quit your teaching jobs to start this business and all your different senses and anxieties and things that must have been going off at that time. Starting a business is not easy. Teaching in the classroom is also not easy, but they're very different challenges, right? And so you guys quit your jobs relatively early on to start Educalme and then ended up not taking a personal salary for a couple years. Tell us about that journey. And that's a common journey where people aren't giving themselves a salary when they're starting a business. But what was that like?
Well, we knew that in order to create the program, we just didn't physically have enough time or energy in the day to be able to do it while we were also teaching.
The first year was very much about creating the content.
Yeah. And then once we had created the content, we always knew we wanted to go back to the classroom because we wanted to use it in our own classrooms.
Test it out, pilot it.
Yeah. And also we both love teaching. So that was, we wanted to go back and use what we had created in the classroom. So we knew going into it that we probably wouldn't pay ourselves while we were away from the classroom. We did get notions that we would be able to, because like I said, you listen to a podcast and like, you just have to do this one thing and you'll make $1 million. So we kind of got caught up in that, like, oh, maybe we can make $1 million in our first year. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, I mean,
we're very lucky we have amazing husbands.
yes,
right,
who supported us along the way.
Yeah, having that support system is really important.
Absolutely.
Do you think it would have been feasible without partners at the time?
I think we wouldn't have quit our full-time jobs. We would have gone to half-time.
Right.
Which is what we do now. We both teach half-time.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the goal was still there to do it no matter what. It was going to happen. It was kind of a matter of how.
Yeah.
We could not, we were so passionate about the project when we started talking about it, and it started out as this little idea, and then it just became this big thing. That was I would
like to know about that a little bit more, because I think a lot of times friends are sitting across the table that work in a similar industry and they're having, a glass of wine and brainstorming all these amazing ideas. And then they go home to bed and that's like, and then a couple months later when they're having a drink, they brainstorm it again.
Yeah.
But to actually go and do it, how do you get from one to the other there?
We both were, I think the big difference for us, maybe the difference or what kept us driven was how we had experienced the transformation in our own lives through mindfulness. And we had seen the results that could happen in the classroom if we did this as a daily practice in the classroom. Once we saw that, we were like, we can't not bring this to the world. Like, this is necessary. And we had such a fire lit in us that we didn't have the option to not follow it. Like, it
still feels that way.
Yeah.
All those times we wanted to give up when you asked in the lightning round, it's like we couldn't.
Yeah.
We are so passionate about this.
Yeah. It's so important to us. And every time that we get close to wanting to give up, it's so funny. This happens literally every single time when we're starting to get a little bit down and like, oh, it's so hard. We always get an email from a parent or a teacher that's telling us how this program is changing their child's life and how they just can't imagine a classroom without Educalme Classroom anymore. And we're like, okay, we have to keep going. Like, it's so worth it.
And we recently got our program evaluated by a third party and found out that like what we're seeing in the classroom it's real. Like, it's been studied now, there's proof, and it's just like, now that we have that, it's just a whole other like.
So there's some data proving that it really does have important outcomes for the classroom.
Absolutely.
For the students. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's great.
So now we got to keep going.
Yeah.
Like, it's too good. Yeah.
Now, what about kind of making sure that content remains yours? Because, you're saying that you've got this proof that your product works. Now, what about the feeling that, well, someone else might take what you're doing and run with it the same way? Is that a fear that you guys have ever had?
A little bit. But we make our audios so that they're not downloadable. So we always have that piece. I guess someone could, in theory,
listen to all of our audios and put thousands of hours worth of work into re-recording it in.
Yeah.
But in the end, lots of people ask us that question, like, what are you doing to protect? Like, what are you doing for copyrights? Like, we have copyright on all of our things, obviously, but you can't, as soon as it's in someone's hands, you can't know for sure how they're using it or who they're sharing it with. In the end, we always kind of just take the viewpoint of like, we can't control what other people do, but we have to bring this to the world and we can't let those questions stop us. Mm-hmm. And also no one could there's other mindfulness programs out there for schools. We're not the only one, but no one's doing it how we do it.
Right.
We're doing it in our way. And someone else might take ideas from what we've created and do it in their own way. Well, then they're serving a community that's slightly different than the people that are attracted to our work. So everyone needs mindfulness. So the more people that are teaching mindfulness, the better. Right. And we're just going to keep doing our thing, knowing that the right people are going to find our product and it's going to serve them the way they need to be served.
Yeah. And that's such an important mindset to have, and you've got the right one, because you have to go out there and do what you're doing. If you're always looking behind you, like, you're going to trip, right? That's when you're going to stumble because you're too busy worrying about other people. So keep looking forward, and that's a great way to be. And you guys have some really exciting upsides to your business. You mentioned these great anecdotes of people who are, emailing you or reaching out saying how impactful it's been. But you've also received public accolades from the community, and you mentioned a few of those in your bio, and access some different support services locally. How impactful have some of those things been for you?
Huge.
We love Colleen at the Women's Enterprise Center.
Yes.
Yeah, talk about the Women's Enterprise Center, because some people, they see those resources and they're not really sure what they're able to give you. So what's that been like working with them?
Amazing. So at the Women's Enterprise Center here in Winnipeg, if people don't know, you can get access to free business coaching. Free business coaching. It's amazing for women. And we've worked with other coaches too, and just this has been the right fit for us. We've had such great support and guidance from Colleen at the Women's Enterprise Center. So, we set up monthly meetings or however it is, and she walks us through gives us the skills or the resources that we don't have, because we don't have any background in business. We are teachers through and through. So everything in business is brand new to us, and she has just been an amazing resource to help us
along the way.
Yeah. it's been great.
I think that's a really good anecdote because back to that concept of people, sitting around with their friends having ideas, but not really having any clue how to take something and actually make it a reality. So maybe if you are in like a niche industry and you have an idea, but you don't know the business size, then this is a good anecdote to say, go check out some of these local resource centers that we have, like the Women's Enterprise Center here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, and we worked with the CEDEM as well.
Yeah, tell us a bit about that experience.
We were finalists in the Fosso Lyon, which is, how do I describe
a
it?
pitch competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we worked with them a little bit through that, and they really helped us to understand what we actually do, like how we're supposed to speak about our business.
Right, yeah, because again, you're used to explaining something the way a teacher would, not necessarily the way a sales or business person would. Yeah, so refining your mission, your value statement, and also probably your market fit and things like that.
Yeah, so they were amazing for that.
Yeah. Great. And then you received the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award. Are those things just like really nice extra things to have, or do those awards like help propel you forward? Talk a bit about that.
They definitely are great in a few ways. I mean, obviously it's nice to know that people in the community see value in what we're doing, and that obviously feels great. But it also has given us connections that we didn't have before. People say, oh, I saw you in the newspaper, or I saw this article, and they didn't know about us before. So it's been really helpful to grow knowledge about our business and what we do. It's also been really great too for to back up that we're legit,
Right.
So yeah, it kind of proves that we're a real business. We're doing great things, and
it does put a little wind in our sails for sure.
Yes,
it's just nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Getting recognition is always really good, right? But yeah, and a good point to say, it helps to prove that you're really on the right track and that people are interested in what you're doing, and it's free PR.
Yeah.
But I guess it's not totally free, right? Because these things take application processes that take time. Are there any you've applied for and just never heard back? Or has it been really successful so far?
Luckily, we've been successful.
Right,
that all the ones that we've applied for have turned out well. But we will always say that it was time well spent, because it has always helped us to improve our understanding of our own business and really how to talk about our business and how to talk about, improve our elevator pitch and improve our mission statement and make it clear, because when you're talking to lots of people, you can see the question marks in their eyes when you try to explain what you do and they don't quite get it.
Right.
So through a lot of these practices and interactions and writing things out and refining things, it's really helped us to be able to clearly state what we do in a way that people understand.
Yeah, that's really important. And you guys have really come to a good place. We find that too on the show, right? Because we ask our guests to explain a little bit about their business in advance of coming on in a form we have them fill out. And oftentimes we hear back, because we're in this unique niche of interviewing startups, they'll come back later and tell us, that actually really helped me because I hadn't had to write it out like that before, because we're asking these questions about the startup, right? About that early phase. So to your point, having that process of having to write it over and over and answer it in different ways really does help to refine it.
Very, very helpful. And especially in the beginning of your business. And, in the beginning, it's so hard to explain what you do to people because you don't quite get it yet.
We didn't know for the first year.
You're like, well, I'm trying this and I'm trying this. And you don't quite know what works for your community yet. You don't quite know you think you know what people want, but it might be slightly different than what you thought. So you're constantly
you want to stay open too, right? Well, maybe they'll respond to this or this. So I'm going to say both, but then saying both
we tried a lot of
them.
things.
Yeah. So just over time and doing a lot of those application processes and also a lot of these pitch competitions actually have training. So there's someone that teaches you how to do a pitch. And so that's very helpful. So it's always been worth the time.
And, because we're on this topic right now of identifying who you are as a business and also having used Women's Enterprise Center, and with the world that we're currently living in as well, having such a big conversation right now around diversity, gender parity is also part of that conversation. Do you identify as being women in business? Has that been something that you think has made a difference for you? Maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
It's interesting. Josianne and I both grew up in families where our moms were just superstars. My mom owns a business, Josianne's mom owns a business. We have lots of entrepreneurs and business owners in our family. So I never have ever thought of being a woman as a thing that set me back. If anything, I felt like it was something that woman power. That's how I was always raised. So I don't say I've never had the mindset that being a woman holds me back. If anything, it's better because I have this great resource like the Women's Enterprise Center that's devoted to women. How great is that? So when you get this extra support by women, they're like, yeah, female power, So I don't know.
Yeah, there is like a community that's built around that to some degree, right?
Yeah.
What's it been like growing a business specifically in the Canadian prairies? Has that felt like a unique aspect for you or a beneficial aspect in any way?
I think it is an amazing experience because we are such a tightly knit community. We feel so much support from our community, and I feel like that's like really unique of Manitoba. I don't know that if we were to build a business elsewhere that we would have the support that we have. And from the beginning, and really like with our Francophone community, they were the first to like jump on our program and adopt it and bring it into their classrooms and take risks on us. And from there it grew. And it's really because of our little community.
Yeah, and word of mouth, like in Manitoba and across the prairies, I find that as soon as people love what you do, they want to tell everyone about it and make sure that they say, and they're a local business, like they're from, so like we have some people that use our program, teachers that use our program, that one of the big reasons they chose our program was because we're from the prairies and they wanted to support local. So there's definitely that mindset of like, we need to help each other out, which is amazing when you're starting a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really part of why we started this show as well. So,
yeah.
Okay, what's next for Educalme and for the two of you?
Well, we are just going to keep delivering our program. We are really focusing on learning how to be better at marketing our program because, like we said, our strength is in the program development, the curriculum development, and we have data to back up that our program really works. But we are learning to be better at marketing it so that we can help teachers that are looking for a program like ours find it in this big world. So that is our focus.
And we're planning to translate it in Spanish in the next couple of years so that we can have a wider range of teachers using it in North America.
Mm-hmm. And as we have users growing a lot faster in the U.S. currently, like we have more and more people from the U.S. using our program, we want to be able to serve their bilingual community as well, because we know coming from our bilingual situation, it's so hard to find bilingual resources. So for those in the States where a lot of areas is very bilingual, Spanish, English, we want to be able to serve them too.
That's great. And we love to have our guests share some resources with listeners. Will you please share with us, what are you guys reading right now, streaming? What's your favorite app to use? Tell us some of that can help our listeners.
We just started using the program Notion for our
operation side of business.
Yeah, and it has been such a game changer for us to be able to have all of our systems, all of our procedures, all of our communication within there. It has made it so easy for us to be able to teach part-time and also work on the business part-time, where we're not always able to communicate like in that time because our schedules are different. It makes it so easy for us to communicate. So definitely recommend, if someone's feeling disorganized in their business, check out Notion.
Okay, interesting. And anything else? Any other kind of guides or the resources that you use when you're first getting into mindfulness or that social emotional awareness piece?
I am currently reading the book Permission to Feel by Mark Brackett, which I think is a wonderful book for anyone, absolutely teachers and parents, but even those that are just starting to be interested in managing their emotions, learning about their emotions as an adult, no matter what you do. It's a very useful book for understanding the connection between our emotional life and everything else we do in our life, and how important it is to learn the skills that we need to be able to manage our emotions.
Yeah, I feel like The Whole Brain Child as well from Dan Siegel, kind of in the same idea, same theme, and it is really good read.
Yeah, it's one of those books that you're like, oh, now I understand. Like
why kids behave the way that they do.
Yeah, or like how I developed in the person I developed into, or why that one thing sticks with me. Like it's a must read for every human.
Right. So not just if you have kids or are a teacher, but for anybody, you think they'd be open to that.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. And what's the best way to learn more about Educalme Incorporated or get in touch with the two of you?
Go to our website, educalme.com, so EDUCALME, and from there you can find our podcast, the Balanced Educator podcast. You can subscribe across all platforms. You can find our program. You can start our free trial. That's the hub. Everything's there.
Perfect. Or Pinterest, because you'll find them there too.
Yeah.
Or Instagram.
Yeah.
Or Instagram, yeah.
There you go. All the above. And we'll link to you guys in our show notes too. But ladies, thank you so much for being on the show today. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks for
so
having
much.
us.
Thanks for watching. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment below. Also, find us at startpodcast.ca for full show notes and to really get to know all of our guests and join our email list so you never miss an episode. You can also chat with us on social media at Start Podcast or find me at Margaux Miller. For now, thanks for watching.